Hello and welcome to episode 20 of the Motivational Millennial Podcast. Today we are talking with Adam Rosendahl, who is a creative entrepreneur, founder of Late Night Art, and just an all-around awesome artistic dude. Adam and I have collaborated in a lot of different capacities, and it was a real pleasure to have him on the show, sharing his insights about how to turn your passion into a business, and a host of other nuggets of wisdom. Stick around before the after show for a freestyle rap and beatbox. Adam's a really great beatboxer too, so that was super fun. And in the after show, Ivy and I will share our biggest takeaways.
Woohoo!
Hello, welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living lives with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our Motivational Millennial guest today is Adam Rosendahl. Adam is a creative facilitator, event producer, and DJ based in Oakland, California. In 2012, he founded Late Night Art, an international creative events organization that drives innovation and builds community inside of companies and universities around the world. Since then, he's been on a creative rampage, leading over 100 late night art events in 5 countries with over 4,500 participants. Adam firmly believes that engaging the imagination is the key to changing our culture. Adam, welcome to the show.
Really fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We are glad you were here in person. And we'd love to hear more about what you're up to with late night art and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, so I can just give you a little backstory. I mean, I've been painting and drawing since I was 2 years old. My mom bought me a canvas when I was little, and I've always grown up trying to get other people to do art with me. So even in high school and in college, I was bringing people into my dorm room and just getting people to throw paint down on canvases and stuff. But with late night art, I figured out this kind of interesting format to get people to do art together in a way that feels like a party. It's really fun, but it also allows me to weave all these fun learning elements into it. So it's something that I have been doing forever, but now have found the right way to actually get paid for it and actually do it in really unlikely places. So one thing I'm up to is doing late night art instead of universities. And so tomorrow I fly to Philadelphia and I'll be going to Penn State and doing an event for 100 university students. And next Tuesday, I'll be doing an event for a medical insurance company.
That's a great spectrum of individuals.
Totally.
And for people who haven't experienced late night art, and I'm very thankful to have actually experienced one, it was amazing. Can you talk a little bit about what it's like when you're there? Because I think people sort of hear, okay, it's this creative art experience and it's collaborative and interactive, but give us a feel of what that feels like to be there.
Yeah, sure. So what I usually say to people is that, first of all, the events don't happen late at night often, and that it's not an art event. So it's a bit confusing and there's no experience required. What we have created is an opportunity to step into the creative process using DJ'd music, collaborative art making, and facilitated questions. So it's this really sexy kind of banquet style dinner party where a facilitator asks questions for a team of an organization or students at a university. And it allows that entire group to answer the questions by illustrating their responses. And they do that in small groups of people. So one by one, they rotate from chair to chair and they add on to each other's ideas. So by the end, this group of people has created this huge visual tapestry that represents all these different conversations and ideas, but looks kind of like a mural. So it's a platform to do a lot of different things.
And that's one of the things I really appreciated is the questions, at least the version of late night art I attended, were so insightful, but they really got people talking and reflecting and expressing themselves on the table and with each other, which I think is really rare. And I could see how it would catch on and be so appealing, like you said, in places where students are learning about themselves and how to be who they want to be in this new environment. Or, yeah, like an insurance company who is wanting to collaborate better and think more creatively outside the box. And how did your own experience with art help you develop this creative vision to say, I want to do something kind of off the beaten path from maybe a traditional job?
I knew that I never wanted to be alone in a studio painting for hours on end. I did that I was a professional illustrator for a period of time. Then I got a job painting murals. And for me, when I was painting with other people, and there was a group of 6 of us working on a project together, there's a lot of really exciting connections and moments that happened on the way to building something that was much more interesting for me. So I started looking for a lot more opportunities to do art with other people, and I became an art teacher. So in 2010, I moved up to Seattle, and I started teaching art inside of middle schools and high schools. So not a traditional teacher, but I was working at about 3 different schools. And in one of my classrooms, I had a group of students who had been expelled, and they were there just to get their GED. So it wasn't a traditional art class in that sense. They were just there for credit. And so I had this opportunity that it can also be seen as sort of a nightmare from a teacher's perspective of about 30 students who were, I would say, almost entirely disengaged and had no interest in participating in this process of actually learning art. So I was just figuring out how could I engage this group of students that was kind of off the wall. And in that process, I developed a lot of things that have led to the creation of Late Night Art, what I'm doing now.
Was there a defining moment when you decided to go, jump fully in and do late night art and decide to start pursuing full-time this passion?
Yeah. I mean, I started throwing events more consistently in 2012 in May. So May was the first event I did in Oakland in a warehouse in Fruitvale. And when I did that event, there was some little spark that went off inside of me, and I became very deeply committed to this. So I started leading events consistently every single month for the next 2 years. But the thing that actually launched me into going full time with this late night art as a business was in 2014. I was working as an event manager in Berkeley at a venue, and I got fired. And that was my primary income. I was doing late night art a little bit on the side, but when I got fired, I went up into the hills in Berkeley and I was crying, and I had a business coach, and I remember calling her and just kind of feeling really sorry for myself. And she told me, Adam, you got this. This is a good opportunity for you to step into this. And for me, I didn't believe that it was possible. But about 2 days later, I got my first really big corporate client. That was Old Navy. And they were booking me for a gig that was going to give me the same income that I might have made in about 3 months at this job. So when I got that gig, I all of a sudden had a sense that I might be able to take this full time. And I haven't looked back since then.
That's amazing.
Adam, can you tell us about a key moment that helped you discover your sense of purpose along the way?
Yeah. So it was 2014, and I was staying on the top floor of the Brown Hotel in Louisville, Kentucky. It was my first time ever traveling somewhere for work. So I had this suit on, was feeling pretty uncomfortable because I was about to walk downstairs at 8 a.m. in the morning and do late night art for a group of 40 federal probation officers. So this was far different than anything I've ever done before in my life. And I was hired by the U.S. court to talk about how to create a sense of safety with the clients or people who are in jail that these folks are working with, or people who are coming out of jail. So I walk downstairs and I'm standing in front of the room. And as people start to walk in, every single one of the probation officers had a bulletproof vest and a firearm that they had to take off and put in a container. And I'm just kind of sitting there with my mouth dropped. I can't believe that they hired me to do this. I've always had sort of an aversion to authority, and especially to police. So feeling especially uncomfortable. And the moment for me was when I asked 6 people to stand up on the table. And I said, strike a pose with your body around what you think it feels like to be incarcerated. People looked at me, including the chief of staff, who was my client, with this kind of look of disbelief. Because before that moment, there was a lot of sarcasm and side talk in the room. And at that moment, things just went silent. And I said, yeah, move your body around to create this position. So people took these poses on, and everyone in the room drew them. And so they illustrated like they're in a figure drawing class, these different positions. And I walked around after about 2 minutes and I tapped the shoulders of the people who were standing. And I said, Now just say a word or a phrase that's coming from this character that you're representing with your body. So people were saying things like hopeless, deadened, pain. And after that, again, in silence, there was something big shift that happened in the room. And what I felt was, there was a kind of like looking into the world. The goal of this workshop was to build empathy, and I could feel people soften. And coming out of that workshop, there was a really distinct shift in the way that people were treating each other and looking at the work that they were doing. And so coming out of Louisville, Kentucky, working with the Federal Probation Office, I came back to the Bay Area with a sense that I could use late night art as a tool to work with almost anyone. I couldn't imagine a group that's more difficult and more uncomfortable for me to work with. And having such a powerful experience with that group, I really felt like the sky's the limit with this work that I was doing. So it really created a stronger sense of purpose to use late night art to bring creativity into governmental agencies and businesses and groups of people in a whole new way.
That's a really powerful representation of empathy that I think could be applied to so many different places, right? Law enforcement thinking about the incarcerated, employers thinking about employees, or employees thinking about customers, or any kind of group of people who have an experience that may be antagonistic from time to time. What does it feel like to be in those person's shoes or in their emotional state? And I love that you were able to create that experience for them.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you had this David and Goliath moment, because that's like the worst case scenario, like audience that you're describing. And it's like, okay, I'm going to come in here and you have the jaw dropping moment. It's uncomfortable because people are sort of being sarcastic. And so to come out of that, I can see how you would feel like, okay, this is it. Like nothing's going to stop me now, sort of thing. That's really amazing.
Yeah. It was a trip.
It is. It sounds like a trip. Like, wow. Yeah. Because even, I imagine even in that moment for you, in the moment, there were probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, saboteur voices going on in your head. Like, oh gosh, like, how do I get control of this room? Like, how do I achieve this successfully? And so to like really see it working, there was this, I imagine, transformation in your own mind. Just as the people in the room were transforming, your brain is like, whoa, your brain was softening. Like, whoa, this is really working and really meaningful to people.
Yeah. It also just gave another way to look at the work that they're doing, using theater. Mm-hmm. Because, often they use sarcasm because it's so heavy that there's no other way to do it besides using humor. Mm-hmm. So this gave a new way to kind of explore their relationships with these people who are going through such strong, challenges and difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely.
How has it changed over the years as you've been doing it and you've seen things that work, things that could be improved? Because I think that's one of the hardest things with any kind of creative endeavor, where you get that first win and you're like, yes, this is it. And then as it progresses, there's definitely a learning process. So what kind of things have you learned along the way?
One thing is I would never have expected that I would be flying into Nigeria to work with African entrepreneurs, or flying to Miami to work with the Tourism Board of Mexico, and working with these executives at Procter & Gamble. And part of that is me, in a way, dressing the part. So, just walking into a room with confidence that I can actually create some sense of change and a powerful experience for people that I wouldn't have thought I could relate to as much. And so I think for me as a facilitator, I've gained a lot of confidence in being able to walk into environments that traditionally I wouldn't feel welcome in more high-level executive corporate environments that I used to be very averse to as an artist in college, and feeling like what I am doing actually has a lot of value and power in any place. So the way that the actual workshop has changed, I think, has kind of been honed and developed over time, having done it in so many different contexts. And we've switched up the supplies we use and a lot of the questions we ask. But honestly, the process has remained pretty similar since the first time that we did it in 2012.
And how do you think being a DJ has informed your sense of the energy in the room and the importance of music as part of this process? Or maybe even some personal things about connecting people who you, like you said, you might not think you could connect to. I'm just curious of how being a DJ has informed your experience over the years.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think I talk about it that much, but from when I was really little, I've always seen the way that music can change the energy and the mood of a room. And that it's actually a really powerful position as a DJ to be in control of the atmosphere. And so I use music very intentionally to create different moods and transition between different pieces in the events that I lead. And what I say is when we turn the music up, it's very loud. It's about creating an immersive experience, almost like you're at a club. The goal is that people through the music are able to completely engage in the experience. So there's not a lot of side talk or chatter. It allows a space where people can become completely immersed in what they're doing. And so I've been collecting a lot of music from around the world that kind of gets people into that place.
What's it like for you? I mean, you mentioned that one of the ways that you've grown is that when you're going in with groups of people that as an artist you might not have seen yourself interacting with. So what's it like for you to bring your passion of art and of music into these settings and create kind of a shift, I imagine, for those groups? What's it like?
I mean, the goal for me in this whole process of turning late night art into a business is to maintain a sense of fun and to like continue just enjoying myself. So I have been able to, at almost every single event I do, I bring in a producer and at least 3 production assistants. And those are generally my talented friends. So it's been an amazing experience for me to get to walk into places like Stanford University. And we did an event with Singularity University at the NASA campus in Palo Alto and these places, but walking in with my friends kind of as like a little team. And then collectively we create this experience and then get to walk out and celebrate. So for the most part, it's been really fun. It's also, I've had to become much more organized. Which for me feels like a really good thing as an artist. I want to be a creative, a fiercely creative person who's also extremely professional and organized. And so this has been a big push for me to become that, shift my identity in that way. Yeah.
Well, that actually reminds me of the phrase creative rampage. I'm curious to know about that word choice, honestly. And what do you like? This is on a creative rampage from your bio. And so I'm curious about that because you said being fiercely creative. So I thought it was an interesting phrase.
Yeah. I mean, I say the word rampage because it's been pretty much since I started doing this. It's almost like my life before and my life after. Because when I started doing this, I gained so much momentum so quickly that I've been doing events almost constantly for the last 4 years.
Wow.
So, I mean, at times I've done 6 events in 2 weeks and in 4 different states. And so when I think about Rampage, it feels like I'm running.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm running by myself because I feel a big reason why I've continued doing this is because it's deeply satisfying to me, but I also have so many partners and friends and mentors who are kind of pushing my back forward. So I feel like I'm being pushed forward, but I'm also running. So with that extra momentum, we're moving really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting too about your journey is, I think, when people think of how do you make it as an artist in the world, right? There's always this notion of the starving artist. And that definitely happens a lot. But I think what's so cool and creative about your story is you said, here's this thing I love to do, or a couple things, right? I love actually making art, but I also love hosting events and throwing parties. And you love helping people develop and grow and enjoy each other and the communities. And so what I love about your journey is the way that you said, okay, how can I combine those things and turn it into a business? And that's, like you said, really hard because sometimes the skills that it takes to be a good artist are not necessarily the same skills it takes to be a good entrepreneur. And so I'm curious, you talked about needing to be more organized and working with other people. What has helped you develop those skills and the confidence that it takes to say, this is going to be bigger than just myself?
It's almost entirely just been based on my relationships with people. So I have a certain level of confidence in what I was doing because people walked away and they gave me a lot of great feedback and people would say wonderful things. But I still don't think I had the confidence to actually turn it into a business. It took like a lot of people who had built really strong relationships with, who trusted and believed in me and continued to push me forward for me to actually take those steps. So I think there's just a whole web of relationships that I am part of or standing on that have allowed me and helped me to make the decisions that have gotten me to where I am. But it also was not my vision or my goal to have Late Night Art be a business. It was just something I was doing on the side because it was really, really interesting. And it was a way for me to bring different communities from Oakland and San Francisco and the Bay Area together in one space to explore different issues in a really fun and creative way. So it started out as just a fun project I was doing in my classroom, and then something I was doing more as like a social experiment, and has transformed now into a business. But I guess the flow or the process has been very organic, and and a little bit unexpected. Like it's still surprising where it's taking me and where it's going.
Yeah, I really relate to that with the hip hop motivational speaking work that we've been doing, because I started out just volunteering for 10 years essentially with schools because teachers would say, hey, you're into hip hop and education. Our kids love hip hop and hate education. Can you come in and help connect them? And so for me, that was just a personal passion, and no one ever paid me for it before a couple of years ago. And then it was like, oh, wait, this could actually be a business. And then thankfully, Ivy came on board and really helped create the organization and the marketing and everything around it to fully flesh it out. And similarly, I think we had no idea the journey would take us on eventually to founding Motivational Millennial and even to doing this podcast. I think it also helps maintain that sense of passion and drive because you were doing it long before you even thought of it as a business. And so I'd imagine in the moments when frustrations happen, that can still help propel you. And so since you've been on this journey, what are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face, and how have you overcome them?
I mean, I think for me, some of the hardest moments around, continuing to run Late Night Art as a business is around decision making. Well, certainly being organized, but also how to make these larger level decisions, especially involving money, because there's a lot of things that I'm having to do really quickly that feel like really big, high level decisions. And at the moment, I don't really feel like I have the advisory board or the guidance. And so I'm trusting my gut and my intuition on things, but it feels kind of scary because it's bigger than me now. So I see Late Night Art as a movement around bringing creativity and building community, like I said, inside of organizations, schools, but we're also working inside of governmental organizations and doing it in a lot of different areas of public life, in venues and things. And so it's happened now in 9 countries, and it is a movement. It's much larger than me. So when I'm talking about making decisions for Late Night Art, it's not about just me anymore. So it just feels like, a lot more pressure. That whole is this the right way I should be investing the funds of this business, and is this the right decision that's going to move us forward in a good way? I think just that process has been pretty invigorating and also kind of scary.
Yeah. And you said that you've been trusting your gut and your intuition on that. And how's that been going so far?
I feel pretty good about my sense of intuition because I think it's led me to where I am. And I really want to get a business coach.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had a business coach last year. I found it incredibly helpful in breaking through a lot of mindset stuff around my relationship with money, especially as an artist, and how many times people have told me, good luck living a life of poverty as an artist. I've heard that so many times, where people laugh when, you tell them that you studied studio art in college, which is what I did at UC Santa Cruz. And so there's a lot of stuff around money, but then in terms of my intuition, I think it goes back to relationships. It's like I develop a trust, and I trust my relationship with certain people. And I think those people have acted as guides for me. And so that has worked out really well.
So what advice would you like to give to millennials who are on a similar path of pursuing their passion, or you're trying to find their passion? What would you like to say?
So I guess when I think of millennials, I still think of maybe a stereotype, but I think is also true, is like we could say we're blessed or we're trapped in this constant succession, always moving forward, always like going to the next rung of the ladder, deeply connected with technology. And so it can be easy to get lost in trying to go faster, quicker, and just focus on moving up. And I think in that process can lose track of real, authentic relationships with people. And it can be easy to just use people to help you get to the next level. And so I see that, in a lot of my friends who are entrepreneurs, and I see that in myself as well. And so what I guess advice that I would give to people that I also feels really important to me is to maintain my connections and my relationships, to have real connections with people that are not focused around getting something. And through those relationships, part of it allows us to remain human and humble, but it also creates a sense of reflection where we can get feedback and real advice that does help us move to the next level. So that has been my experience, is through my close relationships that have provided the foundation for me to move forward when I feel like I'm getting lost in this whirlwind of decision making and business stuff. Like I come back to those connections to help me.
I think it's really great that you're speaking so much of the intentionality around creating relationships, taking the time and energy to really foster them and maintain them. I know for myself, the real reality is that we're alone with ourselves all the time, you know what I mean? And it can be kind of scary to be the one that's like making the decisions. And you're the one that's making the decisions ultimately about your life, whether you're an entrepreneur or a student or whatever your path is. And so it can be so wonderful to have a group of people that you've intentionally chosen that are consistently there for you and that you can trust and that really help you so that you don't feel so alone, even when you have to make a decision on your own. Like even if it's something that they can't do for you, which most of the time it is, right? You have to do things for yourself. But it doesn't feel that way when you have a tribe or when you have a group of people. And I know for myself that I've found that to be incredibly invaluable, and the intentionality, because my friends that I'm very close with, aside from my wonderful business partner Blake here, they live everywhere else, multiple places. So it takes a little bit of extra effort, but it's so worth it. And just your orientation around that and as part of your foundation, I think is really powerful and cool.
Yeah. Thanks.
Did you have any role models for that along your way on the path? I'm curious because that sounds like something that you've really thought about and crafted. I'm curious where you learned that orientation.
Yeah. I mean, so the person that comes to mind for me his name is Charlie Murphy. And so he is the founder of Power of Hope, which is a leadership camp for teenagers that uses the arts that has turned into this multi-international, it's kind of exploded. So it's now in 12 countries and there are people all over the world that use his model. But it started from this idea that we are all creative and that creativity is a doorway into our inner life. And this man, Charlie Murphy, was someone who, when I went to this program when I was 13 years old, he stood up in front of the room and he said, "The people that do good work in the world throw the best parties." And what I saw in him is somebody who I saw doing really deep, powerful work with teenagers using the arts, but he was having a ball doing it. And it kind of broke my idea of what being an activist or being involved in social justice looks like, because he was somebody that is deeply passionate about changing the world and transcending a lot of barriers. I guess he was doing it in a way that was really fun. And so it kind of created a new opportunity for me or a new orientation of living that was doing really powerful, good work in the world that was affecting people's lives individually, but also just having a great time doing it. And so that's kind of become part of my motto, is around how do I continue to have these ripples of positive impact in people's lives and just have fun along the way.
And that's really critical, because you can have personal transformation experiences that are really challenging, and sometimes they need to be. Sometimes it takes going into the dark, deep places to really affect that change. But I think people tend to enjoy it more when they are having fun and are engaged. And that's one of the things, even with the hip hop motivation work, you can share the same message without freestyle rap and beatbox and having everybody dance. But gosh, do they have more fun, and it gets more energy and embodies the message more. And one of the things, Adam, that you have taught me is this facilitation activity. Is it called Rhythm Circle? Is that what you call it? Or Rhythm Journey? The step?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like a step pattern. Yeah, I just call it body rhythm.
Yeah, body rhythm, which, for a podcast, we can't really illustrate it. But essentially, you get everybody in a circle, and the leader just starts illustrating this step movement and sort of body, with slapping the body and clapping and stomping. And it's really beautiful because you're teaching through experience, and you're teaching one step at a time. And I just love that as a metaphor for how to learn anything. It's that we can all circle up together. We all start as beginners, but if we take it one step at a time, eventually by the end of it, you've got 4 separate groups of people doing these complex interrelated rhythms, and it's amazing to watch. And so I always think of that as a great metaphor for your own ability to bring people together through music who might not be on the same page or have the same experiences, but to give them a common space to start that they can grow together, especially in a short period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that in general, whether it's rhythm or through visual arts, through beatboxing, freestyling, these different creative art forms provide an access point to different ways of learning that just normal kind of face-to-face conversation doesn't have access to. And so I've found that in my work with Late Night Art, I can use a lot of these different art forms and creative processes to talk about branding, marketing, executive leadership, decision-making. We're talking about shifting the tourism industry inside of Mexico, these complex conversations about race and preserving culture and all these things. But we can use these creative art forms to have these deeper level conversations, and that it's much more fun, but it also, I think, there's a lot more depth that comes out when you use the arts.
Mm-hmm. Those barriers come down between people and even around ourselves. I have to be serious and we can't have fun and think creatively. I love that. So as we're sort of shifting into the final part of the conversation here, we're interested to hear more about what gets you personally motivated. And on an ideal day when things are going your way, what do you do to set yourself up in the morning to have that great day?
I mean, one of the most exciting things for me right now is the opportunity to get to work with people that are inspiring for me. So for instance, right now, there's an artist who I really look up to in the Bay Area. He's a professional illustrator and a muralist, and is currently laser etching art onto the sides of satellites and putting them into space. So he's the first artist to put public art in space. Wow. We had an amazing connection, and now we're actually working together. So he's a facilitator for Late Night Art, and his name is Forrest Stearns. He also goes by Draw Everywhere. And so the opportunity that I get to work with artists like Forrest to co-facilitate, and soon he's going to be leading his own events, his own Late Night Art events, and putting his own spin and style on it, more as a professional artist, but kind of weaving that in. Like that, for me, gives me a lot of, it's very exciting. It provides a whole nother level of kind of surprise in what I'm doing, because I get to kind of continue my learning process. But it also puts me in the role of, as a trainer, as a manager, to kind of teach what I've been doing, which is a whole nother level. In the morning, what sets me up for success? I'm more deep in technology than I've ever been. So one thing I do is I turn off my phone at night. And so I make sure that I have a period of time in the morning that is tech free. So I wake up to a radio alarm, to a jazz station. I do brush my teeth to like start off fresh. I do a little meditation, a little movement. And after I take a shower, I turn my phone on and I could really start my day. But having that little period of time feels really important. That's kind of like it's my time that's not distracted by all the other things that are happening.
That's such a great idea, because when you use your phone as the alarm, it's like, oh, I turn my alarm off. So I'm like, okay, I should check my email. I mean, why it's here, and I've gotten fairly good about noticing that immediate thing and like, actually, no, I'm not going to solve this problem now anyway. Let's just wait till after, I'm showered and ready. But I love that you're just removing that temptation entirely. It's so freeing. Sometimes I give myself to like a whole day where I just put it on airplane mode. I don't know why I don't turn it off. Maybe I'm still a little too connected to it. But anyway, but it's like so freeing because I'm not thinking about like, I wonder if somebody texted me that I missed, or feeling like a sense of responsibility to everybody that's trying to get in touch with me via the phone. And I love that you're providing that for yourself every morning. That's a good idea. I'm thinking about doing that. Where do you get an alarm? I don't even Target.
The internet.
Garage sale.
The internet. Yeah. No. I know. It's so funny. My little jazz station that hits in the morning every morning. It's like pretty random. But a big part of what I'm teaching is around like helping people to relate and connect with each other again. Yeah. And so I always have people physically turn their cell phones off before they do my events.
Oh, smart.
And part of that is that it actually can be anxiety inducing for a lot of people, especially like executives. But after about 30 minutes, they get totally engaged in the process. And so once the phone is off, it allows the space for people to really be there with everyone who's with them at the table in a way that they cannot be if their phone is in their pocket.
That's a gift. That's a real gift. So would you share a motivational quote or a book, something that's changed your life that you would recommend?
Yeah, well, I already shared Charlie's quote around the people that do good work in the world throw the best parties.
Oh, yeah.
And it's fun for me to share that because Charlie Murphy just passed away just a month ago. So I'm thinking about him a lot right now as this person, again, that was doing amazing work in the world and just like he was always the last person at the party. So, of course, his memorial went until 5 a.m. and people were just going to the wall because that's what Charlie would do. But I feel very, there's a lot of every day I could die and kind of living with death on my shoulder. And so there's a feeling of the immediacy and the urgency of of life right now for me. I've had a lot of death in my life in the last 3 months. And so this goal of doing really good work, mostly shifting the way people feel I'm working with, who are in my life, creating joy, creating a sense of meaning in people's lives, feels really important as part of my purpose. And I use the arts and creativity as a way to do that. But then for me to just enjoy my life and to have a good time while I'm doing good work still feels very aligned. So I always think of Charlie standing in front of the room saying, the people who are doing the best work in the world are having the most fun and throwing the best parties because they really have something to celebrate. So what I'm working on is doing things in my life that give me reason to celebrate.
That's great.
Thank you so much for being here. Will you share with the audience where they can find out more about your work and get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So the name of my business is Late Night Art, but night is spelled N-I-T-E. And so lateniteart.com is the hub of most of the things that we do. We also have a presence on Facebook and Instagram. So at Late Night Art, we host public events and experiences around the San Francisco Bay Area and occasionally in other states. So you can keep track of us on our website for the different things that we'll have popping up. We'll be at some conferences and doing a couple private and public parties in San Francisco in the next couple months.
And if you do have a chance to check it out, I would highly recommend it. Like Adam said, it's a great time and you meet awesome people and it's really fun and it's usually not too late at night, ironically. So I highly recommend it. Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, it's so fun to see you, Blake and Ivy. Thanks for bringing me onto the show.
as the bonus track here, Adam, in addition to all the other awesome things he does, is a fantastic beatboxer. So we've had a few freestyle sessions, and we're going to do a little freestyle right now. Ivy, can you kick us a few topics that I should include in my freestyle rap?
Do you have a genre? Because all of my stuff is about... The first things that come to my mind literally are motivation, art, and millennials right now, because this is the conversation we've been having for the last hour. So is that...
Motivation, art, and millennials? We could do that.
Okay, great.
That seems reasonable.
I really...
I can throw in some stuff from the conversation maybe too.
Okay.
All right, that sounds good. All right, Adam, you want to drop that beat? Yeah. Check it. Yo. Freestyle rap, you know how I start. It's only afternoon, but got late night art. See how we doing it? Yo, I'm off the wall, chilling up here with Adam Rosendahl. Oh, you know me, yo, it's so clear. We got up here, Ivy LeClaire. Hey, you know I'm straight up staycating. Now I'm chilling here, got a little motivation. Yo, people say that millennials are lazy. We telling them, yo, look around, you crazy. We doing mad stuff, traveling up to Africa. And when we're back, yo, son, we'll get back to you. Turn off your phone first thing in the morning. You need some jazz to wake you with some warning. Yo, global warming, cause it's so hot here. But Adam's got late night art for years. That was awesome. That was fun. The Motivational Millennial Podcast is supported by Motivational Millennial Coaching Services. We help you find clarity and confidence so you can take action toward living your dream life. To learn more about one-on-one personalized support from someone who believes you have a path to fulfillment and wants to help you uncover it, visit motivationalmillennial.com/coaching. Welcome to the after show of our conversation with Adam Rosendahl and the little beatbox freestyle rap interlude there. It's always fun with Adam. You know, usually I just think we're going to hang out and just chill, but inevitably there ends up being an impromptu cipher. So one of the things I really appreciated that Adam brought up a fair amount was the importance and impact that relationships have had on his journey and his career. And at one point he talked about he just gets to hire his talented friends to work with him with late night art. And it made me think about how one of the most fun parts of the entrepreneurial journey has been to work with awesome, talented people who are also really great humans. And I think sometimes that doesn't get talked about enough because there's this idea that, oh, you have to find the cheapest vendor or the most, prominent whatever. And sometimes it's just your talented friend who happens to be an amazing photographer, and you bring him in to shoot a bunch of things for you. In the case of Joe Martinez, to make a specific example.
I was I'm thinking of someone specific.
Someone in mind. Yeah, but that's a great example. When I was working in the music industry and doing a lot of photo shoots with the artists I was working with, we would fly in Joe to England, to Greece, and it was the best thing to be able to have those experiences with someone who was a really awesome person, a very talented professional, but also a close friend. And, on the flip side, I think we've all, maybe in the entrepreneurial world, seen or heard about or experienced times when working with friends can be a challenge. So I don't want to paint this rosy portrait of it's always a great idea to work with friends. I think it really depends on who you're working with. But in my experience, I love supporting people in my life who are dedicated and passionate about what they do. And when I have the resources to do that, giving them that opportunity. And for the larger message, even if you're not an entrepreneur or anything like that, I really think taking an intentional look at who you spend your time with and what kinds of things you're doing matters a lot, because it really affects the quality of your life. And we don't always have the ability to choose who we spend our time with, either in our family or at our office or whatever job we're doing. But to the extent we can be intentional about creating and fostering relationships that are really positive, I've just seen it make such a difference in my overall happiness level from college, for example, where often you be around people in a context where it felt necessary to spend time with them. And then post-college, I was like, wait a second, I don't have to spend time with people who are going to drain my energy all the time.
And I think it's really cool because you've told this story before, but you started getting practice from an early age, developing new relationships with people. And you tell the story about how your mom encouraged you to invite at least one new person a month to hang out. I don't remember what time frame was that in your life? What age?
That was in high school, yeah.
It's such a blessing that you had the opportunity to start putting yourself out there in that way and learn those skills, because the truth is that for people who are not as comfortable with others, like other humans, like let's just be honest, like, you know, like euphemisms like with others, but with people, you know, it's not necessarily as easy to do, to cultivate relationships, because that really is a skill set. Mm-hmm. And that really is an orientation on the world. And so I think, I mean, it's great that you're talking about this because it really leads into what I wanted to share, but I want to talk a little bit more about your stages of people skill development. Like, I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. So I'll try to give the condensed version, but early on, I was such a shy child. And I just remember anytime my parents would ask me to call somebody on the phone, I'd be terrified. The thought, even if people I knew, friends or the friends' parents, just, no, please, Mom, can you call them for me? And over time, I spent more and more time around adults growing up as an only child, and in situations where I was having to meet new people, especially we lived abroad a couple times, once in Ireland and once in England, and being the outsider, truly the only American in the school, in the case of England, it was really challenging and forced me to find things in common with people. So when I was 13, we lived in England for 6 months. I went to an all-boys school that was terrifying. I got knocked out the first week of school by some kids on the quad. I had to play rugby. I had to do French and German second year, which I'd never done either before. Figure drawing, all of these new experiences and challenges. And added on top of that, all these kids had their own culture that they grew up with in England. And for me, ironically, Magic the Gathering, the fantasy card game, was really a bridge. And it wasn't just kids my own age. It was kids who were older at the school, because we found something we had in common that we could talk about. And around this time, I started really being intentional about asking people questions as a way of connecting with them, because I realized how lonely it felt that no one ever asked me anything about myself, where I was from, what I was interested in. And I thought, I want to give other people that gift of inquiry and genuine interest in their lives. And so I kind of took it to an extreme, which I think we've talked about as well before, where I started only ever asking people questions. I'd never volunteer information about myself because I thought it was selfish. And then I had a big blowout with one of my friends in France who yelled at me and said I felt like I was interrogating her all the time. And that made me realize, oh, wait, volunteering information about myself is also helps to connect with people more. And then after college, to get to the real heart of your question, I started realizing that some people, I would talk to them and I would leave the conversation feeling drained and emotionally exhausted. And other people, I would think, I want to go conquer the world now. And I started to see those as patterns. It wasn't that, someone was having to have a bad day or really struggling with something in their life. It was like people whose orientation in the world was always to find a problem in any given circumstance. Like, hey, you just got into, this great organization you want to be a part of. Yeah, but they probably won't like me. I'm probably not good enough. I don't have the right clothes. I don't have, just like any victory or perceived success, they could immediately turn into a negative. And because I really care about people, I would always try to give and boost them up. No, it's going to be great. You're going to be awesome, da-da-da. But I found eventually I was just expending so much energy. And so I started thinking of who is in my life is a net negative and who is a net positive. And I say net because it's not that they're always positive or they're always negative, but just on the whole, the totality of my interactions with them. Do I generally leave feeling inspired and motivated, or do I leave feeling drained and exhausted? And that really helped me take a hard look at where I was spending my time and who I was spending it with and how I could spend more of my time around people who were amazing, because I could help more people if I was in that great state. I felt like it was selfish initially for me to not want to help these people who were feeling really negative and giving off this negative energy. I was like, no, but they need help. But what I realized was I'm not going to be in a good place to help all the people that I can potentially help if I'm always feeling drained and exhausted. So that's a long answer to your question, but I hope it kind of gives some of the trajectory of how I came to this place where I do care about people and I am interested and I want to know about them. That's why I love this podcast, because we get to talk with these amazing people and really get into their lives and their journeys, but also recognizing I have to be conscious of the relationships I'm creating and fostering in my own life.
What I find really interesting, among many things about what you're saying, is underneath the development of healthy, positive relationships in your life was a realization of your own self-worth and your own value, and how important in that respect having those kinds of positive relationships is for your life, because it's a reflection of how you are viewing and treating yourself. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about for this after show. And the first thing that I went to was relationships, community, because I really believe in it. I mean, I literally have a tattoo on my wrist that, among other things, signifies community. It also signifies connection, relationship. But I can sit here and we can sit here and we can be listening to all of these advice gurus about the importance of relationships and community. And I can think of several examples off the top of my head. One that I always heard in college, actually since forever, is like an oldie but a goodie. It's not what you know, it's who you know, which, according to Adam, like that kind of has an orientation around like getting what you want out of through relationships. Mm-hmm. But it's still true. I mean, it's still in many cases true. There's also, I feel like it's Tony Robbins or someone who talks about how much your 5 closest friends make and how that has an impact on how much you yourself will make in terms of income.
And everything else in your life. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I feel like this is all really good in theory. But the reality is that I didn't always feel this way from a whole healthy sense of worth and sense of value way. I feel like when there's shyness or there's a distrust of other people or a dislike of other people, there's a common phrase like, I don't like other people. A lot of people feel that way. And this has been my personal experience. So I want to share that because I think in hopes of helping other people who also feel the same. I think that comes from a distrust, a fear of trusting people, fear of connecting to people, low self-worth, because a lot of us may have had some kind of trauma or something that happened that made it really difficult to build relationships. Mm-hmm. Because for some of us, building relationships is like doing quantum physics calculus theory of something. I don't know. It's really challenging. It does not come naturally. And so while I fully believe in the importance of these kinds of relationships, absolutely. And I have come to find even in the past few months that they're the most important thing to me. But I didn't used to always be that way. I mean, even in grad school, this is like 5 years ago, I just was going through so much emotional unhealthy stuff that was happening internally that I consciously stopped going to, I was invited to all these different things and I just stopped going because I knew that if I stopped, people would stop inviting me and I wouldn't even have to like say no anymore because I was in such a place that I was just being a recluse for like months at a time. I feel like we can say all of these like practical kinds of things about like in undergrad, like here's how you network. Number 1, say hello. You know what I mean? And that's really great. But sometimes the root of it is really deep and actually involves a lot of really deep healing to build relationships. Sometimes the root of it isn't just the skills. It's part of it, but it's like a healing that happens within ourselves so that we learn to trust ourselves, trust our instincts of people, trust people, feel a sense of self-worth. Sometimes if you're feeling in your life that you are alone and that you don't have these relationships and you don't know how to have these relationships, that the key to that is starting with building a relationship with yourself and oftentimes getting therapy. Like, at least I've found that to be helpful in the past, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think one story that I share in the hip hop motivational talks is about when I was depressed in high school. And you're absolutely right. I hadn't really thought of it through this lens before, but the story I was telling myself was that nobody really liked me and that I'd never have a girlfriend, that I didn't have any real friends, that teachers, they cared about me. My parents, obviously, I knew they really cared about me and loved me, but the core of it was exactly what you described. It's like I didn't feel like I was worthy of someone wanting to be my friend. I wouldn't have ever thought about it in that way at that time, for sure, because it was all external. I was thinking about it. Oh, these people, they don't really like me. They just say they do. Well, that I could never truly know. That's all in their heads. But I was having to tell myself a story. And so the story I was telling myself was they must not really like me. And therefore there must be something wrong with me. And therefore I'll just push people away, like you're saying about not going to all the events, because what I really wanted, of course, was connection more than anything. But as a defensive mechanism or as a fear, I would preemptively try to stop it.
The reality is that some people suck. Like, honestly, some people will take advantage of you. Some people will manipulate you. Some people are not trustworthy. But that is not every person. That is not every human. And no matter how many times we've gotten burned, I feel that once the healing begins and there is a deep knowing of yourself, and you start treating yourself better and having respect for yourself, like in a sense like you did when you started realizing that, you're kind of giving away so much of yourself and your time, you started respecting yourself more and caring for yourself more. You start to see the difference between someone you can trust and someone that you can't. Or you start to notice when someone treats you badly or says something mean to you or doesn't follow through on something and that hurts you, and you have enough value, self-value, and worth built up in you to go, I'm not going to take that. And also faith to believe that it's okay if you let that person go out of your life. There are other people that come into your life that you can actually trust. So I feel like at the root of it, so much of it is about that internal healing. You start to discern healthy behavior from not healthy behavior, and start to believe that you are worthy of people who are going to treat you in a healthy way. Because while I feel that it's important to, in some ways, look at, the income level of the people you're spending your time with, I think that the most important thing is that the people you're spending your time with are there for you. They respect you. They prioritize you, especially people who are your deepest connections, right? Your tribe, your deepest connections. For me, it's like 5 or 6 people, right? That those people, you can trust and rely on. Having those people will help you get through so much. But for me, I had to learn to develop that over time and learning to trust myself, love myself, and then really let in the love of my closest friends, really let it in and just know, oh my gosh, these people have my back. These people fly from all over to come here with me, and so I guess it's my advice is really about hope, because it may seem like, it's not what, who, like, oh gosh, that's the end of me because I hate people and I'm never going to talk to people. I'm never going to be successful now, or I'm never going to have that support, or I'm going to be alone. Like, those things are varying degrees of heartbreaking, but it's like, there's a path there. And sometimes for some of this, it really does begin with like an internal healing and an internal love.
Yeah. I think even recently, I have to remind myself that my friends really do care about me. Because I think it can be so easy to say, oh, people haven't emailed me or called me or texted me in forever. And on one hand, I understand it. It's like, look, we're all busy. We're all focused on our own things. I mean, I don't email or text or call like everybody who I really care about. But like, do I genuinely care about them? Yes. And so I think part of it is believing that that's possible that other people care about me the same way I care about them. And something else you said about the, your 5 closest people, I think the reason they focus on income is usually because that's a business advice. But I think you could look at it in whatever other way. I want to be more present or more calm or happier. So who are the 5 people who I know who are the most present or the most calm or the most happy? Yeah. So it's whatever you value. You can insert, and I just want to mention as a caveat, some people might think, well, I don't know anyone who, or they're not looking to get the highest income. Yeah. That's not a value for them. But maybe you are looking for people who are great at creating and maintaining relationships. Great. So, and that doesn't have to be the same 5 people in every area of your life. Although I think it can be hard to find like that totality, but because the internet, I mean, it's easier in some ways. Not to go down a tangent. Anyway. Yeah. I get so practical. Awesome. On one hand, we're so deep. On the other hand, I'm so practical.
Well, I just thought it was important to talk about that because I feel like we make it sound, we may make it sound unintentionally very easy, because it's a value that a lot of our guests have talked about. Yeah. Community and connection and relationship. And it's like, yeah, man, that's really great. Let's do it. But like sometimes there's a real difficult block. And so I just wanted to just like have some real talk around that, and just like put it out there. Like,
yeah. And I think that's a great reminder too, that it's a process. And look, you talk to one person, you don't connect. Cool. That's fine. That doesn't mean that you are never going to have friends or like never going to connect with other people or like one community isn't the right fit for you. That's okay. And I think it speaks to hope that you were talking about because it can be so easy. And I know from my own experience, one rejection or even perceived rejection can mean you never go to that place again, or you write that person off or those people off and say, they don't like me. And sometimes that's just projection. And so I think it is important to give yourself the time and the patience to say, this is a lifelong process and the people who we connect with early, they might not be the same people we connect with 20 years from now, but that's great. That's part of the growth and change experience too.
And just remembering that it starts with you.
Yes.
It starts with you.
And you're always going to have the relationship with yourself. Yes. Like, no matter what. That is the one constant in your life.
Exactly.
So, might as well make it a really positive relationship. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all, our awesome listeners, for going on this epic journey of inward and external discussion. I feel like sometimes this always borders on like deep introspection mixed with philosophy, mixed with therapy, mixed with total random tangents. So
that's the best of all the things.
Welcome to the after show. So we hope you enjoyed this awesome conversation with Adam, and we really appreciate him spending the time with us today, and also to you all for listening. And we hope you will tune in next week, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
For show notes and upcoming guests, or to learn more about Coactive Coaching, the blog, and our other awesome offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Christy Hostler and Team Podcast.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Blake Brandis. Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!